St. Martin's energy and port infrastructure have faced mounting pressure ever since a major cyber attack crippled the island's main utility provider, NVGB. Frequent blackouts, higher costs, and uncertainty have fueled calls for change. And one solution is moving into the spotlight: liquefied natural gas, or LNG. LNG isn't just about powering homes and businesses, it's also transforming the global shipping industry. UP Party MP Francisco Lacroes has repeatedly urged St. Maarten to embrace LNG, warning that hesitation could cost the island its competitive edge. His call gained urgency after CMA CGM, one of the world's largest freight carriers, rerouted its transshipment operations from Point Blanche to Guadeloupe, citing St. Martin's inability to handle larger LNG-powered vessels. Lacroes argues LNG can stabilize the grid, clean the air around NVGB and the port, and keep cruise lines and cargo ships calling at St. Maarten. He points to emission cuts of up to 99% for sulfur gases and major reductions in nitrogen oxides and particle pollution. Benefits for both public health and tourism. A motion now before Parliament pushes for a full LNG diversification plan, with recommendations due this October. But how practical is LNG for St. Maarten, and what would it take to make the transition? In this Newsdesk Special Report, we sit down with energy consultant Stephen L. Friedman to break down the economic, environmental, and logistical realities behind LNG, and to ask whether this fuel can truly power the island's future. Good morning, good day. This is Newsdesk as well, and of course, we tend to bring very important interviews now and then. I have a visitor to the island today. His name is Steve. I'm going to let Steve introduce himself and his background, and then we'll find out what he's doing in Sunshine City, St. Martin.
Thank you very much, Elson. It's an honor to be here. This is my, third trip down to the island. First thing I want to clear, my friend on the island is Roy Lynch.
Oh, he's my friend too.
Yeah. And Roy introduced me to St. Martin, and I think it's a spectacular place. In terms of my background, I grew up outside of Philadelphia in the States. Went to a public high school, then went to Yale. Very fortunate to go there. Played football for a couple of years, but the guys were a little too big and too fast.
Sure.
In fact, one guy used to hit every day. The year after he graduated, he was the Green Bay Packers blocking back the first 2 Super Bowls, and I said, what was I doing?
Playing with him.
Playing with him. We would go one-on-one. Anyway, the Yale experience was terrific. And very second day as a freshman, I met a guy from Texas by the name of George W. Bush. And he was a classmate. He ended up being president of the fraternity that I was in, Deep, Mother Phi chapter, Delta Kappa Epsilon, and just a great human being. Little did I know that many years later he'd be president of the United States, but whatever it is, he's had a great run, and the family is just very impressive, and he stands for great values. And obviously there was controversy, as there is with any president from time to time.
Right.
I'm honored to know him, and we have a wonderful relationship. The other incredible opportunity that came up in my life is I went to a public high school in Montgomery County outside of Philadelphia called Cheltenham High School. And in my sophomore year or 10th grade, as we do in the American system, one day walking into my honors English class with a young man from Israel by the name of Yoni or Johnny or Yonatan Netanyahu, and his father and mother and his brothers had moved into Elkins Park and lived a couple blocks from me. And actually my parents got to know his parents. And just watching his career when I was in college and beyond, it was extraordinary. And then the tragedy of Yoni was leading that raid to liberate people who were hijacked in a plane, Air France plane in 1976. And there was one casualty in that raid, it was Yoni. And that was just a horrible tragedy. He was one of the great sort of the promised leaders, the future of Israel. And lo and behold, I also got close with his younger brother, who is now the leader of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. So that family was extraordinary, and it's been an amazing relationship, and I'm very close with him and some of his advisors around him, and I get pretty good insights on what's going on in Israel through that. And then there's another individual who I met, I'm going to say in the 80s, amazing guy from Houston named Fred Seidman. And Fred has been an incredible contact person with the oil and gas industry.
Right.
You know, if you're in Texas and you mention Fred Seidman,
Everybody knows.
Fred.
Kind of like Roy.
Yeah, that's a very good, I would say Fred Seidman is the Roy Lynch of Texas, if not the United States. And that's absolutely
That's a
true.
good one, right?
Anyway, Fred's a terrific guy. In fact, I will be calling him some point later today just to mention that I mentioned him very favorably
In St. Maarten.
in this interview. But you know, the key really in this energy situation is you have this beautiful island. I've just been so impressed with it, but it's nice to have an energy or electric supply system that reduces impact on the island.
Right.
And I'm not let me put it this way, I've had some experience. As a young lawyer, I represented, of all things, the Philadelphia Gas Works. Philadelphia Gas Works were an electric provider of electricity and power to the city of Philadelphia using gas.
Oh.
So I got introduced to some of the intricacies of gas and its regulation in the 70s and 80s. And that was a very sort of upfront experience. And then over time, looking at the other options that various states and cities use, it's very clear that gas today, you look throughout the United States and if not the world, it's really the best, cleanest energy source there is. And I think the HFO or the heavy fuel options or diesel, they fall far
On their way out. Yeah.
And I'm delighted and personally, it means a lot to me to see that this island is contemplating going to, and hopefully will happen very soon, going to using natural gas.
What advantages? I mean, in all of your experience, you're saying that definitely in the U.S., most places in the world, they've moved on to LNG, to natural gas. What are the advantages that you could just like 1, 2, 3? What are 3 advantages?
Very clear. A, it's cleaner.
Yeah.
B, reduces environmental impact. T is, as I understand it from the engineers, it's a more efficient fuel source.
Okay.
And I think A, it's easier to store it in liquid form, which is how you store it, and the volume goes smaller. And then when you come to use it, it gets supplied. It's it's really the best energy source. Now, you could say so is nuclear, but nuclear has such a impact and political nightmare and fear of, that 3 Mile Island incident in the United States. I think really put that industry behind for decades, and they still haven't recovered. So gas is the best option, and I think it's a terrific option for the island of St. Maarten. And I think this beautiful island will remain more beautiful for a longer period of time if they can make the switch.
Right. Are you up to date with basically our energy crisis? I'm sure you are.
Yes.
You know what we've been going through. This is really nice to hear from an expert, somebody in the field, of how secure you feel about LNG being here on the island as our main energy source. What about cost effectiveness across the U.S.? You may know. Is it cheaper? Is it better for people? Is it what does it take? What can we expect?
My understanding is it eventually works out to be cheaper, and because of the absence of sort of post-use impacts, the pollution issues that get raised, it becomes there's less regulatory nervousness and less regulatory need to solve problems created by the fuel. So if you have a good system, it uses liquefied natural gas, it burns clean, it's containable, it stores easily, and I think it's just the best of the available energy. It's not to say that there's some point down the line there's going to be something else that comes up.
Right.
I've yet to see it,
Right.
you know, and
Right.
maybe you can identify something on the horizon. I can't either. So I think it's terrific for this island if they can commit to it, which it sounds like they did. I was fortunate enough to watch some of the proceedings yesterday, and it was very impressive to me. There seems to be a real willingness at least by the members of Parliament and some other government representatives to let's get on to gas. I think it would be terrific for the island.
Yeah, they have been speaking about it for maybe close to a decade already, and this is before the energy crisis. So I think it's definitely the solution that's up front that we really want to move to next.
Well, it's very clear, and I knew we're on 100% agreement.
Good. Steve, how have you had meetings on the island? What are the questions that you've been asked that you can say? What are the questions that you've been asked?
Well, I'll be honest with you. But this trip, we've been sort of private, so
Yeah.
I really haven't had. But if I get the chance to talk with anybody, whether I'm staying over at the Flamingo Bay, anybody I chat with, and they'll say, "Well, what are you doing here?" I say, "Well, I'm down here trying to help move the natural gas." And they look, I said, "It's a great thing. It's a great thing." And honestly, that's the extent of the conversations. But we did have the opportunity after the session yesterday in the Parliament to talk with a couple members of Parliament, and I found them really. I think it's a talented group of people. I was very impressed. Look, I did a lot of lobbying of all things the non-union surface mining coal industry. That was one of my clients in the 1970s.
You like tough jobs.
Right.
Tough.
So surface mining, ironically, would produce coal, though it was usually pretty clean coal. But it was a tough industry, heavily regulated. It just seems to me that this is the right fuel for this country and really for the Caribbean, for today and well into the future. And I hope something better comes along, but I'll be darned if I know what it is.
Okay. Where does natural gas come from? Where are the fields? Where do people find it?
Well, that's funny. I'm not as knowledgeable of that, but there are gas fields in Texas.
We know about that.
There are significant gas fields of all places, the Mediterranean, and in fact, Israel, which I go visit a lot because of my relationship with the Netanyahu family and other people in Israel, and I've always been a very strong Zionist.
Right.
And I've been there probably 45 times in the last 40 years. Israel has developed major gas fields in the Mediterranean. So they're now becoming, and so ironic, when you think of that country and its creation in 1948, they had a little bit of land, no assets, and people who have gone through rough times. And then they create this country, and then they have to fight 3 or 4 wars to survive. I mean, they're now the predominant economic power, which is really more important in all of our views, but also military power. But I think they've handled that very, very well. And they are finding and making available natural gas. So
out in the sea, out in the water.
Yes.
Wow. That's really interesting. That's a whole part of development in itself.
Yes.
Steve, I hope to see you in St. Martin again.
You will, and thank you so much for giving me the chance to spout off a little bit.
That's fun. That's
very
fun.
meaningful.
And it was really interesting to hear about some of your friends, your other acquaintances, besides Roy Lynch, which everybody knows. But the others are also.
When I'm on St. Martin, that's my friend.
That's your George Bush.
And maybe next time you will be. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Appreciate it.
This was Newsdesk, a special interview. LNG gas, it's coming.